Hi, Katie Smith-Sylvia with the Smith team of Keller Williams, Fort Myers and the Islands, and I'm here today with John Bashaw to follow up on our first session about future land use and how to actually find it yourself from home. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Katie. Again, I want to thank you and Keller Williams for your willingness to do this. This is really important information for people who are looking to buy property. And this is the second of three sessions. In the first session, we talked about future land use, zoning districts, and permitted uses. And in this session, we're going to do a little deeper dive into these two. And I'll touch a little bit on this as well, but I'll show you the online tools that are available. And once we're finished, you'll have the ability to go and search on some properties that you may be interested in, but also look at properties that surround property you're interested in, which is also very important. So with that, let's go to session 2 and look at some online tools. Hello, let's spend a little bit of time talking about the future land use elements that we talked about in the previous session, and also zoning. The City of Cape Coral has done a great job of putting some online tools out for people to use who are interested in looking at a piece of property, and also for looking at properties adjacent to properties of interest. And I am actually at that screen right now. So the way that I got here, by the way, I should back up a little bit. I Googled Cape Coral land use, and then I clicked on zoning and FLU maps. And that brought me to the zoning and future land use virtual map screen. The first virtual map that I'd like to look at, which is the highest level, is the future land use virtual map. And it is an online tool that using a mouse, you're able to scroll to a piece of property that you're interested in and check the future land use for that piece of property. So I'll just zoom around here in the city of Cape Coral and find a couple of pieces of property that I think you might find of interest and that I think will be educational. You can see that the online virtual map for future land use is populating. The colors, by the way, the different colors indicate different future land uses. And you'll remember from the first session, the future land use indicates how a piece of property is intended to be used in the future. This tool allows you to click on a piece of property. I'm going to click on this one, and it shows you what the future land use is. So I clicked on a piece of property that is a little bit west of Burnstow Road and around about Van Buren Parkway, and the future land use is commercial professional. So you'll remember from the previous session that inside the commercial professional or land use, and inside any land use, there are zoning districts. We'll get to that in a minute, but this piece of property that is red has a future land use of commercial professional. Now, right next to it, there's property that has a different future land use element. That future land use element is single family and multifamily, meaning in this situation, the property that I just clicked on has a land use of single family, multifamily, but adjacent to it, just across the street to the east, there is a piece of property that has a future land use of commercial professional. Now, there is a street separating the two, but here is a real life example of two properties that are literally adjacent to each other with different future land uses. The reason this is important, as you're researching property that you may be interested in Cape Coral, it's critical that you understand what the future land use or the future plans are for that property and also for the properties around it. All right. Got that? Let's jump to zoning. All right. So I went back to the zoning and future land use virtual maps, and now I'm going to click on zoning virtual map. It's the same map. In this case, though, the overlay is zoning rather than future land use. Okay, here we go. Let's bring up that same property that we looked at earlier.
And if I remember correctly, it was Bernstow Road and Van Buren. Okay, here we are. Let's give the system just a bit of time to populate. When this populates, you'll see different colors here. And again, my assumption is that the zoning is going to be different for these two pieces of property because the future land use is different. But let's check it out and make sure. The property that we looked at was west of Bernstow Road near Van Buren Parkway. I'm going to click on the red property that had a land use of commercial professional. The zoning is commercial. So in this case, the zoning and the land use are in alignment. This piece of property is going to have commercial development in the future. And it just so happens that the zoning is currently commercial as well. Let's look at the other piece of property. This piece of property has a zoning of single-family residential. Now remember before, right, the land use was single-family, multifamily, but the zoning is single-family residential. So what this would tell me is that on this piece of property, actually all these properties that are in yellow, there's going to be residential development. On this piece of property, there's going to be commercial development. So we become even more specific now, right? We started with land use, and now we've moved into zoning. The third thing that I want to talk about is permitted uses. In the zoning district definitions, the permitted uses on these properties are actually listed. That is, what type of development can happen here. Now, certainly in single-family development, there are specific things that can happen, and I won't go into the table, but that would be something good for you to research a little further. Perhaps your real estate agent can help you with that. But in commercial, there also is the same sort of thing where there are permitted uses, and there are some uses that are accepted or allowed with special approvals. And the type of permitted uses that could happen in a commercial zoning district are a bank with a drive-through, a restaurant, a dry cleaner, things of that nature. Those are the types of businesses that could go in commercial, and you see that happening in commercial developments all through the city of Cape Coral. So we've got a little wonky here, and I apologize for that, but the story I'm trying to tell is, if you're interested in a piece of property, it's really important for you to understand how is the land intended to be used in the future, how is it going to be used today, and what sort of permitted uses can happen or are allowed on that piece of property. Thanks for your attention during session 2. Again, I want to thank Katie and Keller Williams for allowing us to do this. Next step, the Lee County Property Appraisers site. Thank you.